Hello, you're watching Game Changer. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be discussing Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to China. Of course, as we know, it's an all-weather strategic partnership, time-tested friends, and a friendship higher than the Himalayas, sweeter than the honey as we know it. And in regards to the Pakistan-China relationship and friendship, we've seen the economic ties further strengthening. We see on the diplomatic front the bilateral relations getting better and better over time, and the friendship, the cordial ties, the fraternal relationship between both the countries is getting better and better with time as well. We see that China has stood by Pakistan in all its challenging and difficult times, and of course has helped Pakistan through those times as well. With regards to that, the Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif will be visiting China, and he has already departed for China, where he will be meeting President Xi Jinping. Along with that, he will be meeting the Premier Li Qiang, and he will be visiting Beijing, Shenzhen and Xi'an. Well, of course, this visit will be focusing on different domains. Obviously, the economic domains, as Pakistan and China are a part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and Pakistan is also part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and we know that the economic cooperation between the two countries is entering into a new era and a new phase, as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is entering its second phase. And in that regards, the Planning Minister Iqbal, he also stated that the second phase of CPEC will be focusing on industrialization and B2B contacts. So we'll be discussing the different elements of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to China. He's being accompanied by the whole cabinet, with the Information Minister, the Planning Minister, the Foreign Affairs Minister and the Finance Minister, and we'll be discussing the different aspects of this visit and the impacts and benefits that can reap for both the countries during this visit. In the studios, we've been joined by Dr. Fazal Rehman, who is the Executive Director, Pakistan Council on China. Thank you for your time and joining us in the studios. On Skype, we have been joined by Zoon Ahmed, who is a research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. I'll start off our conversation from Dr. Fazal Rehman, considering that the CPEC is going to enter into its second phase. And of course, in that regards, we know that it's going to be focusing on industrialization and business-to-business linkages. How significant do you think the second phase is going to be, considering that the first phase brought immense benefits for Pakistan, such as employment opportunities, be it the energy sector or be it the road infrastructure or the telecommunications infrastructure that we've seen?
I think that the second phase, which is focusing on industrialization and business-to-business relationship and seeking investment from the Chinese side and other countries, I think the second phase is going to be more important, and it is going to have also a trickle-down effect to the masses also. The first phase was revolving around the infrastructure and energy sector, which has really created kind of an enabling environment in which industrialization can take place, and some other fields of activity can be activated in terms of CPEC. So I think that the second phase is going to be more important, but second phase also needs a lot of attention and a lot of focus in terms of implementation, because it's a very diverse field and we are entering into a new era, and we have to really do our homework very comprehensively in order not to repeat the past mistakes, which could have been like impacting on the speed, on the efficiency of the projects. So I think that this time around, because of the need of the hour, as the country is passing through a very crucial economic situation, I think that this second phase is going to help Pakistan recover economically.
Right, and since we're talking about industry and industrialization, what do you think Pakistan could learn from China in that regards? Because we've seen that the revival of China's economy was through the cottage industries that they introduced into their economic system. How do you think Pakistan could learn, adapt and benefit from the same model?
Well, actually, China has adopted, more centralized production system in which the scale of economy was, very large, where we have the segmentation of our economy, and we are not, producing things at very mass level. So I think the two models are quite different, but then definitely there's a lot to learn from the Chinese experience. The most important thing which I would like to identify is that, we need to enhance our exportable commodities. For the last about 30 30, 40 years, we have been focusing on like 20, 25 commodities which are exportable from Pakistani point of view. We need to study the foreign markets, we need to study the foreign cultures, and we need to produce the things which are required in those markets, so that we can earn foreign exchange and we can create our niche into those markets.
Right.
And the other thing is that we have to really integrate our entire industrial production system. We should not really make it in different segments. And the small scale industry and the medium sized industry is the backbone of economic growth. So we must keep that in mind.
Very right. Since we're talking about producing finished export products, and of course we're talking about how Pakistan can benefit, and of course I'd also like to include Ms. Zoon in the conversation. Since she is present in China, she's a part and a research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. I'd like to take your views on how you think Pakistan can benefit from China in creating more finished products and increasing the country's exports.
Well, I think firstly, let me agree with a lot of what Dr. Fazal Rehman mentioned about phase two, and absolutely, this is a very exciting phase of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. It's a phase that's going to really include the society. As we say, phase one was more government to government, where the prerequisites of Pakistan's capacity building were put in place, and for that, Pakistan is definitely showcased as one of the major successes of the Belt and Road Initiative, which of course spans through so many countries and regions of the world. That said, I think this exciting phase of phase two, where we are going to be engaging Pakistan's businesses, Pakistan's pragmatic business interests, also capacity building, and Pakistan's youth, vibrant youth, will mean that we will need more strategic and more demand-driven partnerships. What can we learn from China? I think some of the things were already mentioned, like small and medium enterprises have to be the backbone of the Pakistani economy. We need to work on capacity building, on skilled labor. And I know, yes, we cannot copy paste China's model. It's obviously suited for China's own governance system and reality. But at the same time, we can learn a lot. For instance, we can have better synergy. I think one of the most important things that Pakistan can learn from China's own development, but also from other examples, because the Belt and Road Initiative is quite vast, and in different aspects, different countries are experiencing some amount of success. I think one of the best things we can do is synergize between businesses. For example, we have planned special economic zones. We know that we need skilled labor. We know that China is a great opportunity for Pakistani youth to be trained. And we need a better conversation between the government, between education sectors, and between the businesses. And also, we need to have a demand-driven and a deeper understanding of the Chinese economy if we are to really benefit from China's technology. Technology transfer is also a big part of the phase two, where we are talking about agricultural technology transfer. We want more swift mechanisms to make us more competitive globally. And another aspect that I think Pakistan can really learn from China is to understand that China's development has been based on a lot of critical thinking and deep studying of unique conditions of every city. Every province has its own solution. So in that, Pakistan has to be more creative. I think when we talk of special economic zones or any part of the country, it's important to study different cases in China of not only rural revitalization that are based on the cottage industry and more value added, even within agriculture, moving towards more value added products, but also other special economic zones. Study the successes, how they vary from each other, which is a good example for different special economic zones that Pakistan is planning, and also study that there were some challenges that China faced in the development process. And I think this can be very stimulating and nudge us in a better direction to understand what are the right lessons to learn from China's development.
Right, Ms. Zoon, you mentioned the agriculture sector, but we've seen and we know that Pakistan is an agrarian economy, but we've also seen that the IT sector of the country, it has witnessed significant growth in the past year, and the country's IT exports have also seen a massive increase. How do you think Pakistan could benefit from China's expertise in the technological domain, and how could China help Pakistan in further finessing the IT sector of the country?
I mean, China is leading the world in the IT sector. And of course, we know that given Pakistan's very young, dynamic population, and also this is the fastest growing sector, we see IT successes in the region. Pakistan has every potential for that. I think one of the things is that maybe we can have joint collaborations between Chinese, different startups, different investors who are also investing in the Chinese IT sector, and many of them have Belt and Road scholarships. So I think a very good starting point would be number one to seek Chinese investment in the IT sector. For that, we can reach out to different initiatives that are looking for viable investment, fruitful investment in the emerging IT sector globally, and Pakistan is competitive for that. So maybe making these linkages, I think the fact that even right now with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, we have good business, a very significant business delegation coming to China, maybe some of them can look into reaching out to these IT sector investments. And then I think another can be just to enhance exchanges. Let's invite Chinese investors to existing Pakistani setups and see how we can expand this sector in a fruitful way. I'll also mention that, in every country, even in China, like there are parts of China that are very highly advanced. Like when we talk about Shenzhen, it is a very high-tech part of the country. But then there are other successes in China, like Yunnan, which was below poverty 5-6 years ago, and today is one of the most dynamic provinces. Its success is because of cottage industry, because of economies, because of value addition in agriculture, and benefiting from the unique situation that Yunnan is in. And it's also suited to Yunnan's diverse ethnic population. So I'll say that while we focus on IT, and of course China is a leading country in that, it's all about investment in the right sectors, it is equally important to focus on agriculture, because agriculture is once again employing a vast majority of Pakistan's labor. It has a massive social impact, and this also has to do with food security. So I think we need to, on a very centralized level, ascertain, which regions in Pakistan are potentially suited for what kinds of investments from Chinese potential partners.
Right. Of course, China can help Pakistan, Dr. Fazal, in different domains, in the agriculture sector, in the IT sector, in different sectors, because China is very technologically advanced and they're very innovative as well. And when we talk about Pakistan's economy, when we talk to different analysts, there's one thing that everyone mentions, it out-of-the-box solutions that the country needs at the moment. How do you think Pakistan could leverage its relationship with China to attract such out-of-the-box solutions and be able to implement them as well?
Well, actually, the conditions in Pakistan are best understood by the Pakistani policymakers. So I think the solutions should come from Pakistani side. China can certainly help in certain areas where we need their help. And the most important thing from Chinese side is that there is a political will to help Pakistan. There is a considered effort to help Pakistan, especially in its economic recovery. So we need to, sort of do our homework. We need to identify the areas where we are having some kind of problems or bottlenecks, and we need to find our own solutions because we understand our conditions better than anyone else. Right. So China certainly would, sort of step in once we tell them that these are the things that we need your help in, and they will be coming forward. They are always forthcoming. If you look at the history of Pakistan-China relations, there has been no point where Pakistan sought Chinese assistance or help and China has not come forth. So it's a understood sort of fact of our relationship, that but it's we who had to suggest. And similarly in CPEC also, the kind of problem which I identify is that we have not really taken the real ownership of CPEC. Chinese Consul General Mr. Sharon in Lahore, he has made a public speech and he said that, this is the time that the Pakistanis should take ownership of the CPEC, which means that you need to sit into the driving seat and drive it through, and China will help you, assist you wherever you want it to. Don't expect that they should come, guide you, suggest sort of certain things and make certain things for you in a platter. So that's not going to happen. It's a commercial project. CPEC is not kind of a gift from China to Pakistan. Its viability depends on the commercial relation between the two entities.
Right, Dr. Fazal, we've seen in that regards, as you mentioned, ownership. The Pakistani leadership, the Prime Minister especially, he's on his visit to China. This does show the intent, and the Planning Minister, Iqbal, has also said that the second phase is very crucial and the CPEC needs to be worked on and expedited. This shows that the government is willing to work on the CPEC and expedite the process. But you talked about bottlenecks and hurdles. Do you think the CPEC project, it's a huge project, multi-billion-dollar project, it should have some collaboration with the SIFC to reduce these bottlenecks and hurdles so that the investors from China and all over the world that are investing in Pakistan, they can seek a better and a more expedited resolution of their issues?
Well, since now SIFC has been created as a kind of overarching body umbrella organization which will be sort of looking into all the affairs of economic activities. So certainly CPEC will come under their preview. But I think that what we need to do at this point in time, when we are trying to bring the business communities of the two countries together, that we should give them the policy frameworks, because the basic driving force of economic relation is going to be the business community.
Right.
And we should sort of allow them, we should enable them, we should facilitate them to conduct business with each other. We should facilitate through our policies. Policy frameworks should be such which can give incentive to the Chinese investors and can also enable Pakistani partners to take advantage of the Chinese investments and the opportunities that exist in the country.
Right.
So it has to be kind of a comprehensive thing that one could look at, and one could sort of then keep plugging the gaps into the entire picture.
Right, and since this second phase is going to be focusing on promoting business-to-business linkages, but we've seen that with that, there's also going to be a barrier of culture and language and other different such restrictions or different. We're going to see that there are different difficulties that both the sides are going to face in communication, in culture. How do you think cultural exchanges and tourism could play a role in bringing these difficulties down and promoting a more business-friendly and easier communicable environment from both the sides?
You have really identified a very sort of a crucial area, which is the cultural differences between the two countries. We are having very different cultures. We have a very different historic legacy. We think differently, but at the same time, China has been able to work with the rest of the world. Like more than 150 countries are now part of the BRI. So they have sort of overcome these difficulties. These difficulties are very real in nature, but in Pakistan also we are trying to improve the situation in terms of introducing Chinese culture in our universities, especially to our youth. I have been director of Pakistan Institute of China Studies at Sargodha University, where 5 years back we established this center, and we also brought a Confucius Institute from China. So now over 1,500 students of Sargodha University, young people, because Sargodha is a hub from where there is in electricity and other things, sort of they produce switches and all that. So they have direct links with the Chinese. So they wanted to learn Chinese language, and they wanted to nullify or remove the middleman, and they wanted to deal directly with the Chinese. So
Right.
this kind of environment is developing very fast. There are like 5 Confucius Institutes in Pakistan who are imparting Chinese language training. Besides that, there are many China study centers who are also undertaking the language. Similarly, in China also, there are several, around 20 Pakistan study centers. Out of that, 6, 7 are supported by Pakistan, also Pakistan Embassy in China. So the people are learning Urdu, the Pakistani culture is being introduced there, and similarly with more interaction and more communication, I think there will be a fairly good understanding between the two people to respect each other's culture, because cultural respect is, I think, much more important than anything else if you really want to nourish, if you really want to cultivate very deep-rooted relationship.
Very, very right, Dr. Fazal, as mentioned. I'd also like to include Ms. Zoon in the conversation and ask her, because she's present in China at the moment, how she thinks, and in respect of the Belt and Road Initiative as well, these cultural exchanges and tourism is going to promote business activities in the region at large, and how can it promote better connectivity between the Central Asian states, in her opinion?
Okay, I think this is absolutely a very, very important aspect. Of course, as was also mentioned by Dr. Fazal Rahman, I mean, China is engaging the world, and a cultural similarity is not a prerequisite. It's more about cultural inquisitivity, right? How inquisitive are we about each other's cultures? How intrigued are we to learn about each other? How interested are we to travel and explore each other's countries, whether it's the natural beauty, the history, the culture, the language? So I think what we are seeing under the BRI, a major focus, not only between China and Pakistan, of course, we are two countries that have a history of very close relations, even if we have cultural dissimilarity. But overall, there's a focus on deepening human bonds, and that means let's learn about each other's histories, let's learn about each other's languages, because familiarity can bring mutual respect, and that is somehow a prerequisite, for envisioning a world where we are open-minded and keen to collaborate with one another. So that's one very important aspect. China is working a lot. I recently contributed an SCMP, South China Morning Post article as well, which was about China encouraging international visitors, because these visits, international tourism, business with the intent of business or just travel, have a major impact in expediting cooperation. When it comes between China and Pakistan, I can say, in 2015, actually 14, when I thought about coming to Beijing, it was very few people knew why that could even be an interesting decision, especially to pursue a career in international relations. Today, with a lot of effort, like as was also mentioned, we have many more China studies centers. We have much more awareness about China's technological advancements, China's history, China's culture. It is a much more intriguing destination for Pakistanis. So I think we really, first of all, need to appreciate how far we have come in a span of just 8.5, 9 years since the phase 1 of CPEC especially started. And that said, I think to have business collaborations, a lot of we work is even at CCG. Otherwise, we meet a lot of business delegations from different parts of the world. One of the reasons that Chinese businesses are also interested in going to particular countries in the world and investing is because they are interested in traveling to those countries. So I think Pakistan's efforts also so far, given we have some of the most beautiful sceneries in the world, we have immense potential, business potential, economic potential. We have a very important location that can be advantageous to Chinese businesses, especially if we're looking in the medium to long term. I think selling these, really showcasing Pakistan as an attractive destination, introducing young Chinese people with Pakistani culture through social media, through different exhibitions, is going to be very important as well. So culture plays, when we are interested in each other, we are just so much more likely to want to travel and explore. And that's where opportunities really begin.
Right, very rightly said. But there's one aspect that I'd also like to ask you, and that's what the role the youth can play, and what's the role the education can play. Because China is also very advanced in the education sector, specifically in the horticulture and botanical sectors, the education in the technical domains and the technological domains. How do you think that could help Pakistan in the human resource development, and of course provide the youth with the skill set necessary to excel in Pakistan and China as well, or all over the world?
I mean, youth is not the future, it's already the present. Look at how much the UN is focusing on youth engagement. It's not about allowing the youth to be relevant, it's about recognizing that the youth is relevant. This is an unignorable, a very a significant part of our global community, and the decisions that are being made among young people are going to be and already are transformative. So I think from the UN to China's own policies, I was also very lucky to be part of the Global Young Leaders Dialogue, and we also received a congratulatory letter from President Xi 2 years ago, which was highlighting the importance of youth globally in China and globally in creating, better linkages between people and expediting the kind of cooperation, collaborative world that we hope to achieve. So I think youth is obviously, we need to, first of all, stop having that conversation that youth somehow are recipients. We need to engage them as stakeholders. Pakistan's one of our biggest assets is that we are one of the youngest, most dynamic populations in the world. I know that even Pakistan, still we say the population is too high. I mean, that's another conversation for another kind of, specialization. But to think of this youth as our asset is one of the things we need to really recognize and leverage it. One of the most attractive aspects of investment in Pakistan is that we have a potential young, skilled labor, right? So how to train it then? This is the real conversation, and for that we are already working on a very broad scale with Chinese technical and vocational education institutions. We have, of course, organizations like Tang, which are specifically working more with Pakistan, and on the broader level, we have Luban Workshop, which is working on a global level and also with Pakistan. So deepening that engagement will mean that firstly, let's expand the number of scholarships. Let's expand the outreach of China's expertise to more and more young people. And where I said, let's synergize between industry and academia. That synergy is going to be about ensuring that when we are giving, let's say right now 30,000 Pakistani students are studying in China. Let's say 15,000 of them are technical and vocational education institutions. There should be a plan that a 1 year training in China, for instance, and a 1 year in Pakistan, and that's going to necessarily lead to employment in XYZ company. This is the kind of planning that really to expedite phase two, to strengthen build the confidence not only of investors but also of our people, that if they are studying, if they're investing in 2 years of an education program, that means that they are certainly going to be employed in a respectable job for in the future. So I think people should be able to see some sense of certainty in the medium and long term. So definitely engaging the youth, benefiting from China's, which is of course political willingness and openness to to invite Pakistani youth and give various scholarships to Pakistani youth. Let's benefit from that and ensure that in the end, I'll wrap up this response on this note that, it was never about roads and bridges and ports and pipelines. That's a prerequisite to enable a situation where the economy can flourish. And the reason for the economy to flourish is to give a better life to our people, which is predominantly our youth. Let's give them hope. Let's give them the right skill sets and a situation in which they can feel confident and be productive and a conducive part of the society.
Well, of course, making a person self-reliant can be can be the biggest help you can provide to any person. But since we're talking about future generations and we're talking about the future, there's one aspect that I'd like to discuss with you, Dr. Fazal, first, and that's the aspect of climate change. How do you think China and Pakistan bilateral ties could help each other in this global phenomena, in tackling this global phenomena of climate change? Because it is a regional threat, and it is a regional and global threat, I would say, and it's going to affect the whole world at large. And even those having the most little of the contributions, those having significant contributions, it's going to affect all of them equally. How do you think there could be a better action plan or a strategy that's collaborated to tackle this issue?
Climate change is certainly a universal issue, and all the countries are going to be affected by that. But then there are some countries which are going to be affected more than the others. And Pakistan is amongst the countries, which is going to be affected with this climate change more than many other countries. So China, as a friend, has already developed, a lot of research and advanced technologies to mitigate the negative impact of climate change and to deal with it. And Pakistan and China can learn from each other's experiences, and especially Pakistan can learn more from Chinese experience of how they have installed certain kind of mechanisms into place to mitigate the negative impact of climate change. And certainly Pakistani now collaboration and cooperation in agriculture sector, where the climate change is going to impact the crop pattern, is China can sort of help Pakistan in that, how to deal this transition in weather conditions, and how to sort of nullify the negative impact on our agricultural sector. So the phase 2 is also including the agriculture sector. So I'm sure that climate change as part of an overarching collaboration, cooperation can also address the agriculture sector. But certainly water scarcity is again going to be a very major issue for Pakistan. China has dealt with it very effectively. Even they have turned their deserts into sort of green pasturing lands. So they have the will and they have the technology and they have research done on all these aspects. We should take advantage, we should take benefit from that. But certainly we have to make assessments of our future needs and then engage China on that. I would like to sort of add one point here. Please which do. The Zoon has been mentioning about the youth. I think I have studied also in China. I did my PhD from Peking University, and I understand the Chinese education system. China trained its youth ahead of time. For example, their policymakers will foresee that 10 years or 15 years from now, where our industrial structure would be standing, what kind of manpower would be required for that. So they are not just producing the graduates, sort of in kind of a unorganized manner. They are developing a very specific class of youth which will be catering for their future needs. I think we should also learn from the Chinese experience the same way that today this is the status of our industry, of our agriculture, our IT sector, and 10 years from now we will be reaching this point, from point A to point B, and at point B this is going to be our technical requirement, and we should sort of groom our youth, we should train our youth and equip them with skills which would be utilized 10 years from now, so that they can be so the human resource should be readily available. Now what is happening that if we are producing doctors, then the doctors are being produced in very large number, and then the state structure cannot really employ them, and then Definitely. They are like sort of a kind of
so strategic education is what you're saying.
There has to be a strategic policy of imparting education to our youth and putting them in different kind of directions, which is going to be our future requirement.
Right, and I'd also like to move towards geopolitical domains. I'd like to ask that since China has invested a lot in Pakistan, the CPEC, it's a multi-billion-dollar project. At the same time, we've seen the bilateral ties. They're on an extremely high level. They're strengthening and they're furthering further and further. But at the same time, we see there's a wave of terrorism that Pakistan has said that that is emanating from Afghan soil, and we've also said that we have credible evidence that it is emanating from Afghan soil. How do you think Pakistan could leverage its relationship with China in countering such instability in the region, because obviously terrorism and war is bad for business?
Well, certainly, China has a very clear-cut policy on terrorism. There is no ambiguity in that. They are against all sorts and forms of terrorism, and no matter from where it is coming. So they are condemning terrorism all across the world. And the most important thing is that China has a very clear-cut neighborhood policy also. They want peace and stability in their neighboring countries, so that the fallout impact should not be felt by them. So Afghanistan is a very crucial country for Pakistan and for China, and we have had a strategic dialogue. Recently we have had the 5th strategic dialogue at ministerial level, in which all these issues and things are discussed. We have also a trilateral mechanism, between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, where we discuss the problems of peace, stability, terrorism, and all that. So terrorism is, going to be a major issue as far as the economic development of Pakistan is concerned, because we have seen that it is one of the deterring factor for Chinese investors to come to Pakistan. They don't want to move from place A to place B, amid kind of a convoy of vehicles, escorting them. So it's kind of very unnatural environment in which, sort of one has to, for a business environment, it has to be, like free movement of people, free engagement of people. Now, there are too many restrictions because of their security and safety, which is very dear to us. But we need to really overcome these problems by negotiations and by kind of developing a consensus between China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, how to tackle with this, especially the TTP issue, which is sort of more impacting and also targeting the Chinese interest in Pakistan.
Yes.
So there could be no compromise sort of on this issue of terrorism. And certainly Pakistan, China is in a good position. They have very good relations with the current Afghan government, and they are sort of in negotiation with them on all these issues. And Pakistan can be also sort of using the China's good offices in order to persuade our Afghan brothers and our Afghan friends to deal with this issue at their end. We will be tackling it from our end.
Well, we hope sanity prevails in Afghanistan, because these are the things, and regional peace and stability, it is one of the things that should be given the highest priority, because these are the only things with regional peace and stability can come economic prosperity for not just one country, for all the countries in the region. In that regard, Ms. Zoon, what do you think? How could Pakistan and China's bilateral ties help in also curbing the hegemonic designs of India, because this is in a geopolitical domain, but how do you think both the bilateral ties between both the countries and the cooperation, it's an all-time high. How do you think these hegemonic designs that we're seeing by India could be curbed by China, and China and Pakistan relationship could help in promoting regional peace and stability further?
I mean, that's definitely one of the most important aspects of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Of course, we're talking about infrastructure and employment and socio-economic development. But in the end, the final goal is really peace and stability and a region that is thriving. That said, I mean, of course, India's presence in especially other South Asian countries, apart from minus Pakistan, but look at the other countries, the smaller countries that India has always treated in a way that wasn't as equal or with respect, have benefited from growing engagement with China. We see that China's Belt and Road, first of all, since 2013, 15, 16 onwards, has played an important role in improving the degree of opportunity, economic opportunity to engage the region for other South Asian countries. And of course, when we talk about further, India's role in even the Central Asian region, right? Has it really been conducive to a region where we have better trust amongst the neighboring countries? Well, that's a very problematic question to begin with. I think what China is essentially doing, even with, for example, many of the mechanisms that Dr. Fazal Rehman mentioned, one of the great achievements through what they also call as the Global Security Initiative was, the China, Pakistan, Iran trilateral at a time when both our countries were, both Pakistan and Iran were deeply affected by the instability coming in from Afghanistan, right? And that did play a role in helping us understand how we can engage, how we can address the security risks in a better way, in a more united way. That said, we also have, of course, the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which essentially has the mandate to create a platform where member countries can increase their engagement and focus on the collective challenges that we face. And security instability is a collective challenge that all countries face. It is unfortunate that not every member in the SCO is playing that role of building trust. And I think as we strengthen, bilateral partnerships, connectivity, we also eventually, for CPEC as well, and with Gwadar Port in particular, we hope that this can serve as a hub of connectivity for the landlocked Central Asian and Afghanistan region towards Middle Eastern and East African markets, right? So in that sense, we would like that eventually, with obviously China's also good relations deepening relations with other countries in the region, including Afghanistan. It's very important. We hope that in 5, 10, 15 years, we see deeper connectivity.
I think we're unfortunately short on time as well. In that regards, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Fazal Rehman, Executive Director of Pakistan Council on China, for your time and joining us in the studios and for your candid views as well. I'd also like to thank Ms. Zoon Ahmed Khan, who is the Research Fellow at Center for China and Globalization. Thank you both for your time. Unfortunately, as we'll have to wrap up the show, we talked about different aspects of Prime Minister's visit to China and the different aspects of Pakistan and China relationship. We know it is a time-tested friend, and we know it is a friendship that is higher than the Himalayas, sweeter than honey, and it's an all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. And of course, China has stood by Pakistan in every testing time as well, and has helped its Pakistani brethren in prosperity, in progressing, and development of different sectors, whether it be agriculture, energy, telecommunication, infrastructure, or human resource development. And we also discussed the geopolitical and security aspects regarding the China and Pakistan relationship. And we also talked about regional stability and how can it be further achieved and further promoted. With that, we'll conclude today's show on Prime Minister's visit to China. And of course, we hope for positive developments to come out of it. And we hope that this will usher in a new era for the China-Pakistan economic corridor as it is entering its second phase, and will promote industrialization and business-to-business linkages. With that, it's a goodbye for today. See you same time next week. Till then, take care.